What has this week and these engagements done for the profile of Prime Minister Modi on the world stage?
You see, I would just bring out one aspect which is dear to me because, as a diplomat in New York, I'm looking for opportunities in increasing the India-US connect. I'm working on this corridor and I'm looking for opportunities. So, I was the fly in the wall when Prime Minister met with the CEOs. There were more than 40 CEOs, top American corporations. And every one of them was invested in India, had confidence in India. They were announcing the plans for putting in more money in India. And it was an amazing, CEO after CEO was endorsing the government and its policies. Even there was endorsement of the demonetization, which some people may say have views on that. So what I'm trying to say is that the American investor, the American corporations, they see as India as the next big thing happening. What's happening in the China-US corridor, that has really opened up India as a new destination. And it was an amazing interaction that Prime Minister had with all the CEOs. So that made me feel so confident about his ambition or our leadership's ambition to make India a $5 trillion economy in the next 5 years. And that messaging also came out very, very clearly, as Ravi said, in the Bloomberg Global Business Forum. And he kept on repeating, come to India, and you could hear the murmur and the positive vibes in the hall. And what was unique was that apparently it was the first time Michael Bloomberg was interviewing anybody. Mm-hmm. So he agreed. He is not a media person like you, and he broke new ground, and he interviewed the Prime Minister and the questions that he asked, and they announced 2 more plans for Bloomberg to work in India. So I thought this messaging that has come out both from the UN General Assembly about what India brings to the world, and also in the business forums that have happened. And of course he had innumerable number of bilateral meetings with world leaders and plurilateral meetings with offhand I remember at least 2. One was with the CARICOM leadership and one was with the Pacific Island leadership. So I think intense round of engagements, and I think the messaging that is coming out is that India is ready to do business. India is politically stable. This mandate that Prime Minister got, I think that has sent ripples around the world. You cannot forget that he is the most popular in terms of votes elected leader in the world. Nobody matches him.
Yes.
And I think that shows new confidence in the country, in his gait, in his posture, the way he was speaking, whether he spoke at Bloomberg or in the UN, and also a remarkable speech at the Bill and Melinda Gates function where he won the global sanitation goalkeeper. These things are transforming India, and the world needs to know, because if this week was the SDG week, UN is all about achieving the sustainable development goals, and the message is out clear that if India doesn't perform, if India doesn't do well in the SDGs, then the world will not do well. And I think India is doing well, whether in all the indicators, and I think in the next 5 years, if India becomes a $5 trillion economy, then the SDGs will be achieved in great substance, and the world will be a very different place.
Right. Ravi, does it strike you as interesting that India is an emerging economy, all said and done, and India is taking leadership where most others fear to tread? The Americans are saying that we are not a global cop. The world's problems aren't necessarily our problems. Even China doesn't want to. China has been doing a fair bit on climate change, but is not taking the kind of position that India has taken. So for an economy that is already under pressure, for India to say that these are the goals we set ourselves is an interesting statement to make.
It is, and I think, look, India is making these statements not just for the world, but for itself. It is good politics, it is good economics to go green. Setting up solar plants today is cheaper than setting up a coal plant. It makes sense to do what India is doing. There is no way, in fact, India can fully meet all of its electricity goals only through coal or only through dirty sources of fuel. So what India is doing makes economic sense. It is also, I think, consistent policy. I mean, these were decisions that were made years ago around the Paris Accords. So all of that makes sense, and I think it comes at a time of, as you point out, American sort of retrenchment, as it were, from taking its leadership role as we head towards a more sort of multipolar world in that sense. But at the same time, I will, since we're talking about climate, The summit was, I think, a little bit of a disappointment for me because, you know, on the one hand, you had the very inspiring words of Greta Thunberg, who was so searing in her criticism of world leaders in terms of, you know, the fact that her future has been spoiled. She never said it will be spoiled, it has been spoiled. It was very definitive, you know, things are not going to get much better. Those were also the words used by Secretary General Guterres when he said that, you know, come armed with actionable plans, not just flowery words. The plans that have been presented, however, they don't break dramatically new ground. I mean, the United States didn't even present anything. China did not go beyond what it had already said it would do. And India's plans, while are considerable, also probably don't go far enough to make a tangible difference. I mean, you know, more than 40% of India's electricity comes from coal. India will continue to develop many coal-fired plants. In fact, it may privatize the coal sector to some extent, as Reuters has reported. I understand why these things need to be done. Indians need electricity as demand grows in India. However, it's not enough. We need to more aggressively pursue greener and cleaner sources of energy. India, I think, can take even more steps than it is. It's doing well. I think it has some moral authority here in New York on this issue, but it can do more.